the Pick-6 podcast, talking all things NFL.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pick-6 podcast with me, Connor Shelton, and as always, I'm joined by Luke Jones. We've got a lot of NFL to be getting into. There's a big game this weekend. It's called the Super Bowl. Don't know if you've heard of it. This show is not the one that we're going to be using to preview it though. No, we're going to be catching up on all the news, all the gossip of the NFL, because even in the Super Bowl week, we still got all different kinds of news, not just Super Bowl. So we're going to do two shows this week. This one, where we're going to be rounding up all the news, talking all the big talking points. And then our next show, which will be out on Friday night, which will be previewing the biggest game in American sports. The Bengals and the Rams going head-to-head for Super Bowl 56. But yes, even though it's Super Bowl week, we've still got a very busy week, haven't we, Luke?
Yeah. I mean, you got to mention the number one story of the week, haven't you?
And that's where
Mr. Brian Flores.
And that's quite sad. In a week where we should be talking about two amazing teams, Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford going head-to-head in a Super Bowl, we are once again talking about racial inequality in the NFL. And it's just sad to hear on the week leading up to the biggest game that we have to talk about this, but we do. Because just as we finished our show last week, news broke of Brian Flores. We was talking about him going to the Saints. He was interviewed for the Saints, for the Texans. And it broke just as we finished the show, about 9-10 o'clock here, that Brian Flores is suing the NFL, New York Giants and Denver Broncos for... It's basically racial... and the Dolphins for some different reasons as well, which we'll get into. Because he wasn't given a fair chance, he believes. This all came out last week in a lawsuit. The Denver Broncos one was from 2019, just before being hired by Miami. He feels John Elway, the legendary quarterback, unfortunately didn't treat him with respect, and he felt that interview was just a sham. They turned up late, they weren't really listening, considering him, and then a few days later they got Vic Fangio, and that didn't turn out great. The Dolphins owner Stephen Ross apparently tried to bribe him $100,000 per loss to tank in the season so they could move up for tour. I mean, if that is true, he should no longer be an owner of a football team. The GM should be gone. Everyone should be gone in that organisation, because that just... I think, obviously, the racial stuff, but to go to that one, people use their hard-earned money. The Dolphins fans in Miami, across America, who will use their hard-earned money to go and watch their favourite team each week. And if they're paying, I don't know how much an NFL ticket is. I mean, there could be $200, $300. God knows how much a season ticket is. They could be paying thousands of dollars a year, and their owner is asking them to lose just so they could get a better draft position. That is just disgraceful in of itself. And then the racial thing behind the sacking. The reason given was confrontational differences behind the scenes, but it's just serious stuff. And then the New York one, it is the most probably stupidest and horrific of them lot. That he was scheduled for an interview, and Brian Flores received a text off Bill Belichick saying, "Oh, congrats on the Giants job," without even interviewing. He hadn't had his second interview yet, and he thought he was messaging Brian Drabble, who eventually got the job, the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator. And he still went to an interview, Flores, but they'd already made up their mind, it seems. So we have the Rooney Rule in the NFL, which allows coaches, black coaches or ethnic minority coaches, to get a fair chance in positions they didn't before. But I think is it 70% of all NFL players are black? Why is there only, 3 black coaches in the NFL now? It just doesn't make sense. And it's stupid we have to talk about this, but what are your thoughts?
Well, obviously the Rooney Rule was like the main thing that's been talked about this week, but I think it's just a blanket. That was just a blanket over the problem anyways, wasn't it? I mean, I had a bit of fun on Twitter this week, because when there was all these tweets about it, I thought, you know what, I'll put my opinion out there, because you see the problem. Like, I saw a tweet of someone breaking the news, and then you just see all the subtweets underneath, and you can just tell that the racism is just so rife. Like the general idea behind this is so that someone gets an opportunity. It's not saying like you need to hire a black coach. It's just that like you need to give them an opportunity that a white coach would get. It's not like saying, oh, you need to hire the black one even though the white one's better, because the Giants could have still hired Brian Daboll on the Friday. Like no one would have said anything. Brian Flores, he may have still come out with his lawsuit. Like you don't know, but he wouldn't have had like as strong as effect as 3 days before, and then you're bringing someone in just to tick a box. Like you said, 70% of players are black, but yet you don't. Majority of the fans don't want to see that representation in the head managers and general managers position as well. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter about race. It should be whoever is best for the job. And the amount of like minority managers who are now, because all the positions have been filled most likely now. I know a few dots are getting crossed and stuff, but majority of the positions have been taken now. So that's 9 jobs, and we've only gained 2. We've got 5 minority head coaches now. That's not the same representation as the amount of NFL players we've got who.
No, or America as a country.
Yeah,
you know, and I found this quite interesting. I think it was Jeff Reinbold, brilliant guy, was speaking about this last week on Sky Sports, and he went, the NFL have tried to change this. Roger Goodell has been trying to change this. He's come out today and said, we're not doing enough. They've offered draft picks as incentives to hire black or ethnic minority people in higher positions, be it general manager, in the boardroom, or as head coaches, or even... Because there's so many offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators as well that are ethnic minority, black, Asian. You know, Eric Bieniemy, one of the best defensive coordinators in this league, he interviews every single year. Why doesn't he get a head coaching job? You can't tell me he's not better than the guy. I don't know the guy who's just been hired, you know, via 49ers offensive coordinator. He's obviously of ethnic minority too, which is really good to see he's been given a chance. But you can't tell me Eric Bieniemy is not better than him. You can't tell me Eric Bieniemy is better than most of these people who are he's worse than most of these people getting jobs. He's interviewed every year for about 4 years now. He's one of the best defensive coordinators with that Chiefs team, and he's not getting a job. It's frustrating. And what Jeff Reinbold said was, it's 32 owners against the NFL. Roger Goodell doesn't really control what happens. He can input his ideas, he can try to change things, but it's an enclosed club. And I don't want to be stereotypical or anything, but them 32 owners, well, sorry, not all 32, but 99% of them owners are old, white, male, billionaires who, may have different views, have that closed view. And it's a club that's just not very selective. Like I said, it's all old white men, and something does need to change. So we need to give the NFL more power to change that, because these 32 guys, Roger Goodell works for them 32 men or who own the clubs. So Roger Goodell doesn't have the power alone to change things. He needs the owners to change things. And when you've got owners like the Dolphins owner, who, let's just go into this for a second, paying his head coach to lose. And Hugh Jackson, the former head coach of the Cleveland Browns, came out and said he was paid to lose some games. Asked to pay, we'll pay you if you lose. So, I mean, that's another issue in of itself. But what's your opinion on that? Like, I gave mine about how it rips the fans off, Then poor people paying the money to go and watch them.
Well, yeah, I would say I agree with you on that point. And another thing that I saw was interesting point, like you talk about Jeff Reinbold. He said an interesting thing. He said that Brian Flores is it's like a double-edged sword. It's like if he agrees to do what Ross wants him to do and loses every game and takes the £100,000 or refuses to take the money but still loses the games, and then he's known as a terrible coach.
Yeah.
He's got a good team. Why is he gone 0-17? Or why is he gone 1-16? But then if he if he's like he said in his statement, if he says no to Ross, he continues to win. Ross is going to these owner meetings and he's going, Brian Flores doesn't follow instructions, don't hire him. He's completely disobeyed me all season. I asked him to lose and he didn't. So why would you want to hire a coach who doesn't? But then again, he's a great coach because he's gone and got this team loads of wins. But it's like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you're not.
Yeah,
it's
because,
just
again, because of that small enclosed group, it's like schoolyard stuff, isn't it?
A small like market, like such a small like pool, isn't it?
Yeah,
and like you said, they're all white males.
Yeah, it's
they're
school
all
playground
white males.
talking, or you're whispering behind people's backs, or you know him like don't invite him into our club. Yeah, he doesn't listen. He's a hard nut to crack. And we were saying the other week how about Brian Flores, he was still under consideration even this week. Maybe it was a token thing. I'm not sure. I don't want to say that. I mean, the Texans do have quite a good job of hiring black ethnic people. Their last few coaches a lot of them have been from that group. So he was still under consideration for that Texan job even after this. But it's another watershed moment in the NFL. Like Brian Flores says, he's in the prime of his career. He's a damn good coach. He's got more wins in these last 2 seasons than Belichick has. He's done really well with Miami. He's in the prime. And he's almost sacrificed that now, because he's going up against the NFL. He's going up against all these teams. And is he almost like a Colin Kaepernick figure where he sparked something, but will it mean anything? Because I don't know if much has changed for Colin Kaepernick and what he's trying to change in the league. But I'm hoping this one does make a difference. I'm hoping, obviously, Brian Flores gets another chance and he proves his worth. But it's going to be hard, isn't it, to get him back in the league, which is obviously a real shame because he's doing what is right, if what he believes in, and what I believe is right too. Because I mean, the evidence is pretty damning, especially with the New York thing with Bill Belichick texting.
Yeah, so I do think he's gonna, unfortunately, will be the scapegoat away. I can't see, even if something comes out of it, I can't see any owner like offering him a job again. Like he might be able to get like an offensive coordinator or a defensive like a coordinator position or something like that. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be like scapegoated as much as Kaepernick was, because Kaepernick wasn't just against the NFL; he was against like the whole American police, because it was against police brutality, wasn't it? And that's why he did it. But I think Flores has been very brave. I mean, he's he's got that resume, being with the Patriots for so long, doing really well with the Dolphins. He was going to get a job eventually, but it's like out of these 9 people who have been at, like, why is Brian Flores not one of them? Is there something we don't know about that's not come out? Like, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Especially with the Texans hiring Lovie Smith, because Flores has come out this week, hasn't he, with a statement saying that his lawyer said it, didn't he? He was in the top 3 for that job. So Lovie Smith, Flores, and someone else was in the top 3 for that job, and Flores is quite annoyed as well again at that, because even though he thinks Lovie Smith, deserves a job and everything, he thinks he was better than him and he should have been getting a job over him.
Oh, without a doubt, I respect what Lovie Smith did with the Buccaneers, especially with the quarterback he had, and the teams he's had before. But Brian Flores is easily the better coach out of them all for that Texans job. He got to work, interestingly enough, with the guy. If the Texans really want to keep Deshaun Watson, we still don't know what's going to happen with him, going off in a tangent. But he'd have got to work with that guy. He was really passionate about bringing him to the Dolphins. So yeah, it's just a strange one. Congrats to Lovie Smith though for getting back in. It's really good to see. Obviously, when we are talking about this, obviously we have had 2 ethnic minority coaches hired this week. With the guy, the Dolphins from the 49ers. What's his name? Sorry, I'm really bad.
Mike McDaniels.
I'm going to call him McDermott. Mike McDaniels. And with obviously Lovie Smith for the Texans. So that's good news at least. But we're at this crossroads where the NFL don't have the power to overrule these guys. They've tried all they can. But the Rooney Rule has always seemed token to me. I remember the Cowboys. I'm not saying Jerry Jones is racist or anything like that, but he talked to Hugh Jackman, but it was so clear that I mean, Mike McCarthy may have been a better choice, but Mike McCarthy was staying at his house when he would talk to Hugh Jackman. He was never getting that gut role. He just talked to him because he had to, you know.
Yeah.
And there'd have been so many people out there in ethnic minorities that would have. He interviewed a guy who was never going to get that role. It was no threat to McCarthy, when there is clearly other people out there who would have been a threat to McCarthy for that role. And it's just, yeah, I don't know how the NFL can move forward. It's so annoying we're having to talk about this now, 3 days out from the Super Bowl, but we have to. But yeah, I think we've said all we can on the subject. We can just
say one thing.
Oh, of course, yes. You finish it off.
Like, I had a lot of people coming back at me on Twitter, like a lot of Americans coming back at me. It got to a point where one of them was just trying to insult me personally rather than actually contributing to the thing. But I summed it up as like, just be an adult to each other. If they wanted, like, because a guy said like, if they really wanted Dable, why should they have to wait? Why can they not get the guy? I said, you don't have to do that. If they wanted Dable, they could have just rung up Brian Flores and man to man and gone, I'm sorry, but we've decided that we want to do Dable, so we're going to cancel your interview. Not hire the guy, and then 3 days later, make him fly out to New York, go through everything. You know, it would have been hours. It's not like going for a job interview like me or you would go for, where it's like an hour at most. You know, he's probably had to put them through, like, play calls. He's probably had to go through film with them, like, situational questions. Maybe had a big... maybe I had a meeting with some of the players and stuff, and they all there knowing it's just mugging him off. Like, it's not just a racism thing. It's the fact that you've wasted his time when you could have just been honest with the guy, and he wouldn't have been half annoyed as he is now.
And I obviously have one last thing. I commend obviously for doing that, and I love to wind idiots because that's all they are. I mean, I can use stronger words, but then the podcast gets 18 plus and less people watch. But the idiots, the uneducated, and they just, I want to swear, but I won't, because I can't bother bleeping out. But yeah, and this just puts the ethnic minorities off, because 70% of the NFL is ethnic minorities, black people, and they're tired. Like, Des Bryant's tweeted, I've seen so many tweets from Marcus Spears on ESPN, former Cowboy, spoke brilliantly about this. Stephen A spoke amazing about this, because it's all well and good me and you talk about this, but we're not in that position at all. We're white male, and it's so hard for us to talk about that, especially we're not American either. It's even harder for black Americans, Americans. So we don't know what we're doing, but it's so good we have these people talking about it, but they're just tired, and it puts them off. Like Des Bryant, he doesn't want to be involved in stuff like that. He might have been a great coach, and just seeing it's always so disheartening. And I just, like I said, I don't know how the NFL does this, because there's 32 powerful billionaires, and you see it in all walks of life, the rich and the powerful, they just do what they want. You can't change their little circle they have. It might be a societal problem as well, because racism is still a massive thing everywhere in the world, the UK, America. And I feel like we're getting better, but we're getting better so slowly, but it's going to take years for the NFL head coaching and front offices to represent how society is. Because like I said, a lot of coaches are black, but they never get that opportunity. Like Joe Judge, we're moving on now to, we can sort of carry this debate on, but we're moving on to the coaching carousel. Joe Judge, failed New York Giant coach. Players hated him, coaches didn't like him. He was fired. He's managed to go back to the Patriots and got himself another coaching job. And it's just stuff like that, people like that. I'm not saying Joe Judge, he might be a decent offensive coach, but he was a terrible head coach. People didn't like him. And there'll be people, that do like him probably, but does he deserve another chance instead of someone new, someone better? Because we clearly must be better people when he was chased out of New York.
It's quite a funny thing about all the little Belichick's disciples all come back eventually, don't they?
Yeah, I can only
they all go
hope
off to
Brian Flores comes
and
back.
Like, no, I want to come back to Dad.
And I do hope Brian Flores comes back because, I mean, did Bill Belichick do that on purpose? I hope Bill Belichick did. I sort of hope deep down Bill Belichick released that text to knowing what was happening.
Yeah, I hope it's like a sort of a heads up sort of thing. Like I don't think the conversations ended there. Like that's just as much as Flores has allowed us to see. Because I reckon when they've probably been texting back and forth, and Belichick's been offering advice and stuff like that. I think he's done it out of, maybe he's not intentionally, like, I don't know. Cause could you? I mean, if you're sending a text like that, you make sure it's gone to the right person, wouldn't you?
I don't think he's got confused. I think we'll know more when it goes to in court or whatever it happens with it. Because Bill Belichick is a guy in it. And I just hope more coaches, black coaches, come forward so this can be a big movement, because more people can join this case, because it's one of them sort of cases where people can just add
class
their
action, isn't it?
So they can come
so
forward. It could be 1,000 coaches. Let's hope it does.
If it's just Flores against the NFL, then he's likely to lose. But the early suggestions is that it could be like up to like even 30.
Yeah.
Extra. People on the case.
I mean,
Hugh Jackson. Pretty powerful if that happens.
Yeah, Hugh Jackson already won. Who's joined? I think he's put his story out there. So yeah, moving on to some more positive news. Hopefully, we're going on the coaching carousel. We've already discussed the Texans. They've got their new head coach, which is good. The Dolphins, it was down to Kellen Moore and McDaniels, and McDaniels won. He looks to me like a tech sort of guy. You see him working like an Apple store. He doesn't look like a football guy at all. But I love that. So Dallas miraculously keep their two coordinators in Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore for another year. Clearly, one of them will be the Dallas Cowboys' next head coach next year. Predicting it now. So McDaniels is going to be the new Miami coach. We're going to see how he does. It's a tough division, obviously. They're building the Patriots. You're sort of battling it out, trying to get as many wins as you can, and you never know. I think we're going to realise how good Brian Flores was this time next year when they're probably on like 5 wins. But it's yet to be seen.
Yeah, because I don't know much about McDaniels, but obviously he comes from the 49ers.
Yeah,
but
he's part.
49ers are known as being a Kyle Shanahan offense.
Yeah, he's the offensive guy. I don't know if he even plays McDaniels.
Whenever they talk about the offense, it's always like it's a Kyle Shanahan offense. It's not like Mike McDaniel's offense.
Yeah, I honestly,
to be fair, I've only heard his name once this week.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him before. I'd never heard of him before either, and I don't think he called the plays in the 49ers. I think it's all Kyle Shanahan, isn't it? So it's an interesting move that. Like, I don't know what pedigree he has, but the Dolphins must have seen something. Or is it just a yes man?
I think it's too early for Kellen Moore.
I think he might have been given reassurances that Dallas job's going to be open. It could be open halfway through the season, depending on how well Dallas are doing.
Did Jerry Jones have your defensive coordinator in one room, and then Jerry Jones Jr. had Kellen Moore in the other one?
Oh, telling them different stuff, yeah. There will be. Trust me. I mean, Stephen Jones never tells... He always says the opposite to what Jerry Jones says. Jerry Jones is so reactionary. Stephen Jones is a bit calmer. But yeah, I think both of them have stayed in Dallas because, like you said, Dan Quinn, it'd be his second job. You don't normally get more than 2 chances. And it would have been Kellen Moore's first. He'd probably looked at Tua. He's quite similar to Dak, I think, in a way. Dak's a bit more mature, a bit more of a leader. But neither of, they can move a bit. They're not great. They've got Kyler Murray, they've got Lamar. They've got good arms, but not brilliant arms. So he's quite similar to Dak, I think. It's just not a leader of men like Dak is. But he might have thought, what I've heard of you, Stephen Ross, bloody I don't want to come here. You never know. I'm just obviously good luck to McDaniels. But yeah, we're interested that Kellen Moore didn't get that job because he's more of a renowned play caller. He's more in the the limelight, I guess, compared to McDaniels. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Another team that got a coach was the Saints. They have they've promoted their defensive coordinator. The Saints are in a mess. It's probably no one probably wanted that job. I'm not gonna lie. As good as the Saints have been under Sean Payton, 70 million cap hit. Alvin Kamara's being arrested for beating a guy up at after the Pro Bowl or before the Pro Bowl or something in a nightclub. We don't know what's going to happen with that. There's going to be a lot of players on that trade block for the Saints, and it's a mess.
You know what? Actually, I spent a bit of time looking into the Saints cap bit of hell. Actually, not as bad as it's been made out. So they've only got 54 players that they have under contract for next year, and then they've got obviously they've got quite a lot of contracts, but they could restructure. And if all the players if the players want to stay together, they've been together 4 or 5 years. All these players now, if they want to restructure and extend, they can do. And apparently, I saw another tweet as well where they could get under the cap by 30 million.
Wow!
If they extended and did all these restructures, there's only one player they'd have to cap cut, and that's Bradley Roby. I don't even know who he is.
No.
Yeah.
Unlucky Brad.
So they would actually. It actually looks a lot better job than the media are making it out to be. If you just do a bit of digging, apparently it's but they just decided to promote them from within.
Yeah, and obviously the Saints have had good defense these last few years. He's worked very closely with Sean Payton for a number of years now, so I think it's a good move all round.
It's like you last week. You just said they need a quarterback, don't they? That's all. You just need Drew Brees replacement. Yeah,
Taysom Hill. Part of me is like, if Jameis Winston does come back, which I don't think he will. I think he might end up back in Tampa, as crazy it sounds. But Jameis Winston was doing okay at the start of last season. He wasn't throwing too many picks. He did his ACL, obviously. So if he comes back, you never know. They might be okay. But they went through too many quarterbacks last year. And like you said, if they've got 30 million under, they can, they could be in the market for Jimmy G. They could be in the market for a lot of decent quarterbacks who might be on the move.
Well, because Garoppolo is under contract, they've got plenty of players they can offer, can't they?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the 49ers have got to like some of them.
Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. Because they don't really have that running back. They've got Deebo Samuel, who's more of a wide receiver. So Alvin Kamara could be good if he gets off lightly and isn't banged for too many games for the battery charges. So it's looking good for them. My favourite one, it wasn't head coaching, but I was so glad that Rick Dispatcher got another job as special teams coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. He did so well with Las Vegas Raiders as their interim coach. Got them to the playoffs, fought back against all that crazy stuff that happened. They had 2 guys cut because of they kill people in very different tragic circumstances. There was the John Gruden crap where he said a lot of horrible stuff. He should have got that job to me. All the players wanted him. Mason Crosby was so vocal in getting him. Derek Carr wanted him. So it's interesting to see if Derek Carr's happy with Josh McDaniels now. We don't know. So I'm glad he's got a special teams coordinator with the Packers. And trust me, he will make them good on that, because they were atrocious this year on special teams, especially in that 49ers game.
Yeah, I think we should close on the best news of the week.
Go on.
We have the Washington Commanders.
Of course. I made a very funny shorts. It got quite a lot of traction and people seem to like it. Yeah, what are they commanding? What they're commanding the NFC East. That's
the fourth position. The fourth position, aren't they? That's what they're commanding.
They should
they're not coming above my Seahawks anyway.
They should have stuck with football team. It's a better name. I did like their new jerseys and stuff though. They do look good. But yeah, Washington Commanders, they've done a 180, from the offensive name they had before for the Native Americans. They've gone for the Commanders, which is literally who they was fighting against at times in the late 1800s. So
That's kind of warming to just the Washington football team, though.
I
I like the logo and everything.
Yeah,
I thought they could have just let into that, mate.
And I like the nickname, the football team. It's just, I liked it.
And out of all the choices they had, because they did like Twitter polls, didn't they? And that was not one of the ones that I was picking when I was voting on. I can't remember what I voted on now,
but as a Dallas fan, I get to laugh at them, so I'm happy actually. But yeah, and one final, we'll talk a bit about trades because there's a few people who might be up for trades. I'm going to start with my Dallas Cowboys. There's talk of Amari Cooper maybe going on the trade block because, I mean, we do pay a lot of money to a lot of people, and I think we want to pay some of these defensive stars early so their heads aren't turned. And part of me's like, yeah, CD Lamb can be our number one receiver. I mean, Cooper didn't have the best of years this year. He wasn't getting up, and we've got Gallup, we've got Wilson. You know, we've still got a lot of players who can play the wide receiver, and I don't think you can really have two number one wide receivers in a team. I don't think it works. I think Lamb's our number one going forward. Number 88. So yeah, do you have any teams you think that are in desperate need of a wide receiver that might be interested in Cooper?
Yeah, us, Seahawks.
Him and Metcalf, that would be. I love Metcalf but is he a number one receiver?
No, at the minute Lockett is, but I don't think Lockett gets like as much plaudits as he deserves. Like, he is really good. It's just a size issue with him. Like, he is really small, so the passes you can actually give to him are not like you would be able to give to DK. I think DK was a bit underwhelming this year. Like, I don't think he was. Like, the first year he had was unbelievable, and then last year, I think he had a falling out with Wilson because there was like a period where, because you know when Geno Smith played when Wilson was out with the injury, Metcalf was just being targeted so many times, and he looked great, and it was like, oh, you know, even though we've got a terrible defense, we're not going to win, but we had some promising stuff on the offense. And then Russell Wilson came back, and you looked at DK's stats, and it was like no targets for no yards, and it's like, I don't know. I think it's just trying to go through things. We could do with another one because we got one of our receivers was voted in the worst team of the year.
Oh.
Freddie Swain was like in the worst team of the year, and he's like, you could say he's our third choice receiver, and that's not very great, is it?
No.
To have your third choice in that.
And then another interesting one I did see yesterday was Saquon Barkley might be up for trade. He's an excellent running back when he's fit, but he's had his injury issues. I know the one against Dallas this year was so unfortunate, where his own teammates stepped on him, and that was a horrific injury. But on his day, I think he's top 5 running back in the league. So I mean, most teams will be after him if they can get the chance to get him out of New York, and they probably do need the picks because they're in a rebuild. And they probably do need the picks more than they need a star running back. So, any teams you think, yeah, he could fit in there? To me, I was thinking, obviously, I thought Patriots. They might need a running back. There'll be probably lots of teams. You know, McCaffrey might be up on trade as well. So there might be a few running backs up for trade this off season.
Yeah, because the thing with running back is they've only got like maximum of 5 years, they say, don't they? So obviously without the players who go for longer than that, but average it's 5 years. So if Giants are in a rebuild, because they are, they're not had a good team. They're not win now. They're never going to be win. They're not going to be win now, even with a few pickups. So they've got a while yet. And when they're ready for that, is Barkley going to be at the tail end of his production? Is he going to be on the date? So would you rather cash in now? I mean, they would have hoped he would had a great comeback season last year. Like, just come back from the ACL. Oh, gonna be great. But he just wasn't, was he? He just looked a shadow of himself. Which is a shame, because when he came in the league, he was unreal. And I thought, geez, he's good. Because like, he would just bulldoze people, and then he'd have absolute ridiculous amounts of pace. But I think if a team tries to take him, because they'll get him for peanuts, I think, because they can just go to the Giants and go, well, he did nothing last year. We'll give you like a second round pick or something like that. It's not going to take much to get him from the Giants if they really want to get rid of him. And I just think it's going to be a good investment for anyone because you're not going to get a better running back in the second round anyway. So spend a couple of picks and get him. And
finally, before we sign off, Tom Brady's been talking again on his podcast because he's got time to do that now. You know, he's retired. He can just sit all around all day doing podcasts. And he said, never say never on retirement. Tom, I told you last week, stay retired. Nothing good happens of coming out of retirement. Just, except for Paul Scholes, he did quite well when he came back to Man U. But Michael Jordan with the Washington Wizards, if you look back, you're like, oh, why did you do that? Just don't make that mistake, Tom. You are 44. Stay retired. And that is it for that is my rant over for this episode of the Pick-6 podcast. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you please do give us your thoughts, of course, on all these situations, on the trades, on the coaching hires, and if you do discuss the racial inequality in the NFL, don't be an idiot. Don't give us grief. Don't be uneducated. Don't be the guys like who were on Luke's Twitter. Give us some good arguments. Give us reasons why you don't. Don't just abuse us. But we believe in that. You might believe something different, but I hope you all agree with the racial inequality anyway. But if you don't, okay. This has been the Pick-6 podcast. Next episode coming out tomorrow will be a lot happier, a lot smilier, because we'll be talking the greatest show on earth. Super Bowl 56 from SoFi Stadium. Who will win it? The underdogs. The guys out of nowhere from Midtown, Ohio. The Cincinnati Bengals. Or the home team, who are actually the away team, the LA Rams, filled with stars like Odell Beckham Jr., Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp. We'll be discussing that and some predictions that probably won't do very well because I'm 0-5 in the two shows. And we will, of course, be giving you some betting picks, such as the colour of a Gatorade. And everyone wants to know that, don't they? So we will see you next time on the Pick-6 podcast. Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you for watching the Pick-6 podcast. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below on all things NFL. We are here from the off-season all the way to the Super Bowl. Don't you worry, we're not going anywhere. Please check out any of our other videos, our shorts, our news videos, our clips, our predictions, our betting. We're here all the time posting all things NFL. Thank you.